Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are tackling a really foundational question. It's right where philosophy, theology, and, well, history all meet. We're talking about the original mystery around the creation of the being who eventually became Satan.
It's a profound one.
It really is. And our sources, they take us straight into this core paradox. If God is defined by perfection, right, all-knowing, omniscient, and all-powerful, omnipotent, then how? How do you even begin to account for the creation of what becomes the greatest source of cosmic evil?
Exactly.
Was it intentional? Did God create Lucifer knowing exactly what would happen? Or was it more of a tragic accident, something unavoidable that came from giving the gift of free will?
It's like the ultimate chicken and egg question, but, applied to eternity.
Yeah.
And the tension there is just absolute.
Yeah.
You've got centuries of debate among theologians basically boiling down to this challenge. How do you defend God's essential goodness when there's so much suffering in the universe?
And the sources we're looking at today, they don't pretend to have some simple, easy answer, do they?
No, not at all. It's more like they offer a framework, particularly for Christian apologetics, which, for you listening, means defending your faith, logically sharpening your understanding of Scripture, especially when facing these apparent contradictions, like this whole problem of evil.
That framing is so important. We're not just looking for some footnote in the theological text here. We're really trying to grasp how faith reconciles its most fundamental ideas with the reality of cosmic imperfection.
Precisely.
Okay, so let's unpack this. What are the main areas these sources are really digging into? You mentioned theology, prophecy.
Right. The material dives deep into Christian theology, biblical prophecy, and the origins of what we call spiritual warfare. And it starts by establishing that this initial conflict, it wasn't on earth, it was internal to heaven, starting within what was supposedly a perfect creation.
Okay.
The central tension they explore is the why. Why would a perfect being, described as beautiful, high up in the celestial order, choose, well, utter ruin?
And the sources ground this in specific biblical accounts, right? I think Isaiah and Ezekiel often come up.
Yes, exactly. Interpretations, particularly from Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28, are often used to piece together this picture.
And this is where the details in the source material get really compelling. They emphasize that Lucifer wasn't just any angel. He's often interpreted as the seal of perfection, maybe even a covering cherub, which suggests, immense beauty, authority, a really privileged position.
A position of incredible trust and proximity to the divine.
So what was the sin? According to these sources, what was the precise nature of that rebellion?
It wasn't ignorance. That's key. It was radical self-exaltation. The source material often points to that reading in Isaiah 14, the famous I will statements. I will ascend. I will exalt my throne. I will make myself like the Most High.
Right, the 5 I wills.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the profound meaning behind the rebellion, the very first sin in existence, wasn't some crime of passion or need. It was pride. Pure, undiluted pride.
He didn't just want to be near God. The interpretation is he wanted to replace God.
That's the core of it, to usurp that ultimate authority.
And what's fascinating is how the sources analyze that moment.
Yeah.
They seem to treat it as the foundational betrayal, the one that kind of set the template for all the evil that followed.
The blueprint, in a sense.
But here's the question that nags at me. If Lucifer was created perfectly, as the sources suggest, doesn't the success of this rebellion, his fall from grace, imply there was some kind of flaw in the original design?
Now you're hitting the absolute heart of the debate.
It seems like it. And this takes us right into that critical balancing act, doesn't it? Divine control versus genuine choice.
That's exactly the tightrope the sources are walking. They use that tension to pivot into the whole discussion of divine sovereignty versus free will.
Okay, let's break those down a bit.
Sure. So on one side, you have divine sovereignty. That's the theological idea that God is in ultimate, absolute control. Nothing happens, fundamentally, outside of his knowledge or his plan.
The master plan idea.
Kind of, yeah. But then on the other side, you have free will, which is seen as this necessary capacity for created beings, angels, humans, whatever, to make real choices. Choices that aren't forced or coerced.
Okay, so sovereignty versus freedom.
Right. Now, if the sources lean heavily towards sovereignty, which some theological traditions do...
Implying God intended it all somehow.
Well, intended the possibility, perhaps, maybe to demonstrate his justice, his mercy, his ultimate power over evil. If you go that route, then Lucifer's creation, including the foreknowledge of his fall, was intentional. A known part, maybe even a necessary part, of the grand design.
Right.
But if the sources put more emphasis on free will, then the fall looks different. It looks more like an unintended, though perhaps foreseen, tragic consequence of giving that genuine lethal choice.
Wait, okay, I need to push back a bit on accidental there.
Yeah.
If God is truly omniscient, like we said at the start, he knew Lucifer would rebel the moment he created him, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. Foreknowledge is key.
So how can any source really argue the resulting evil was accidental if it was completely foreseen? That feels like a contradiction.
That's precisely the complex point these sources are trying to navigate. It's the core of the apologetic defense they build. They make a distinction between God knowing something will happen, his foreknowledge, and God actively willing or causing that specific evil thing to happen.
Okay, explain that distinction more.
Think of it like a grandmaster chess player. The player knows the rules, knows the pieces, knows the opponent. They might allow the opponent to move their queen to a certain square, knowing full well that move opens the door to an inevitable, devastating checkmate later on.
Right, the master sees it coming.
Exactly. The master knows the likely outcome, maybe even the certain outcome given the opponent's nature, but they didn't force the opponent's hand. The opponent still made a genuine choice within the rules of the game. So, according to these sources, God, in his sovereignty, permitted the risk that comes with genuine love and true freedom. He allowed the choice, but he didn't ordain or will the evil act of pride itself. The accidental part, if you want to use that word, isn't God being surprised. It's that the emergence of evil wasn't his desired outcome, but a consequence of a higher good freedom.
So the argument is, the creation was perfect, which meant the angels were created perfectly free.
Yes.
And perfection, in this theological context the sources are using, must include the ability to choose genuine good.
Which logically implies the possibility of choosing its opposite, choosing self over God.
So the potential for evil wasn't a flaw, but almost like a necessary prerequisite for genuine, uncoerced love and relationship.
That's precisely the implication. The material strongly suggests that a creature unable to choose evil wouldn't be truly free. It would just be, well, a puppet or a robot, incapable of real adoration or love.
Just programmed responses.
Right. So to grant true moral autonomy, the sources argue, God had to accept the risk that this incredible freedom might be abused. And they frame this as the highest possible form of creation, one where love is actually chosen, not just hardwired.
Okay, that definitely shifts the conversation. It takes it from being this abstract ancient history lesson to something with, well, immediate relevance, doesn't it?
It has to, yeah.
If we accept this framework, this tension between God's intent and this perfect, risky free will,
yeah,
how does this origin story connect to the ongoing conflict, the spiritual battle that people feel they experience now?
Well, connecting it to the broader picture, which the sources absolutely do, the creation of Lucifer and the specific mechanism of his sin, that pride, that self-worship, isn't just confined to the past. It's not a one-off event.
It sets a pattern.
It sets the fundamental pattern for the eternal conflict. The sources argue that understanding Lucifer's fall gives you, essentially, a critical strategic blueprint for understanding spiritual warfare today.
How so?
Well, if Lucifer's original crime was trying to usurp God's position, to put himself on the throne, then the ultimate goal of the ongoing conflict, from that perspective, is to push us, you, me, created beings, towards the same fundamental act, self-exaltation, putting ourselves on the throne of our own lives.
I see.
So the source material really emphasizes the personal stake here. By understanding that foundational betrayal, you gain insight into the primary tactics of the enemy today. It's not always dramatic possession, it's often that subtle temptation towards self-rule.
So it reframes sin. It's not just breaking some arbitrary rules. It's echoing that original cosmic betrayal, choosing self over God.
Exactly.
So the knowledge we get from grappling with these tough origin questions isn't just intellectual. The sources present it as a kind of tool, offering a critical understanding of the, quote, bigger picture of God's plan.
Yes, and particularly how our choices, especially those driven by hubris or self-will, are fundamentally linked back to that original perfect creature who chose self-idolatry over relationship with the Creator.
It gives a kind of cosmic historical context to our daily moral choices.
That's the aim. The sources are trying to provide depth for, say, spiritual warfare studies by showing the battle isn't always, overtly about demons and pitchforks. Often, it's about that internal choice. Who or what sits on the throne of your heart, God or self?
So they really compel the reader, compel you, to wrestle with God's complex intent, to push past the easy Sunday school answer that it just happened.
Right, avoid the simplistic explanations.
So the takeaway mission here seems to be about embracing that complexity, The sources give us this thought-provoking framework, but it requires you, the listener, to face that paradox head-on. The depth of the theological implication, this idea that God allowed evil, not because he wanted it, but maybe because he desired something even greater, like freely chosen love.
Right.
That's what really challenges and potentially strengthens faith, isn't it?
It forces a deeper engagement, definitely.
So we started this deep dive with that really stark question. Intentional creation or accidental outcome? Purpose or consequence? And we've explored the complex way the sources try to address it. Looking at the profound meaning of the rebellion itself rooted in pride, looking at the theological arguments for why God might allow evil to preserve genuine freedom, grappling with that core tension between divine sovereignty and free will.
That central balancing act.
And finally, connecting it all back to the individual's role, your role, and the eternal battle that stems from that original choice. It's dense stuff. Challenging, but crucial if you want to understand the deepest roots of conflict from this theological perspective.
It really is. And maybe that leaves us with a final thought, a provocative question for you to really mull over.
Right.
If the absolute core of this whole theological mystery rests on that delicate balance we've been discussing between divine sovereignty, which says nothing happens outside God's ultimate control or knowledge, and perfect free will, which affirms your genuine ability to choose, well, how should really understanding that balance change the way you view your own choices? Especially in the context of this ongoing eternal battle between good and evil. Does recognizing God's foreknowledge somehow diminish your responsibility? Or maybe does it do the opposite? Does it actually heighten the immense significance, the cosmic weight of every single free will choice you make?
Wow. Does it make your choice more important or less?
That's the critical difference the sources seem to be pushing us towards considering. What does that balance truly imply for you right now?
A perfect thought to carry with you. We definitely encourage you to explore these foundational theological concepts and the really profound implications of genuine choice further on your own. Thank you for joining us for the deep dive.